friends, and today we're taking a look at the FX40 Soft Focus Reverb by Catalinbread. The best all-in-one reverb on the market, does it all very well. It's almost a utility pedal that kind of covers all ground appropriately well with some standout moments. I frequently find myself, especially in the studio, reaching for reverbs that do one or two things incredibly well, things that show themselves to be a passion project of the person building it. We're here looking at the FX40 Soft Focus Reverb by Catalinbread. This is Catalinbread's take on the FX500 rack reverb from the 90s, soft focus mode, a kind of classic and beloved sound used by bands like Slowdive, massive, washy, beautiful shoegaze reverb tones recreated in this pedal. And this is a device emblematic of that idea of a focused vision for a reverb. This can be versatile, just to get that out of the way first. You can dial things back in this and get a myriad of great, like, short to medium room reverb tones, things that are kind of focused and snappy for non-shoegazy and non-kind of dream pop soundscapey style reverbs. But this thing, and I'm not kidding here, this thing shines with symphony, mod, and reverb completely maxed out. So let's talk about what this reverb is, what it does, and what these controls do. At the bottom you have mix and volume. Mix is going to be from full dry to full wet, and volume is going to be an overall volume increase that you have in this pedal. Minimum is going to be unity, not noon, which is incredibly helpful, and from there you can increase the volume. And fun fact, in true bypass mode that disengages with the pedal, but in trails mode that can be set up to be a persistent always on clean boost if you want it. And along the top you have three controls. You have reverb, which is going to be, of course, the decay time for your reverb. You have modulation, which is a multi-tap, multi-voice chorus modulation. It's phenomenal. It's an astonishingly good modulation control. It's got this amazing liquid character to it. It never gets clowny. It never gets over the top or seasick. It just feels so well tuned and so well dialed. I don't even know how to talk about how much I appreciate modulation at max in this thing. And thirdly, you have symphony, which is basically going to be an octave that gets mixed in, but with a lot of harmonic content and in a way that feels distinctly not shimmer. In that same way that modulation does not get cartoony or seasick when it's maxed out, symphony does not get, I think churchy is the only way to describe bad shimmer. There is no semblance of that in this pedal. You can max out your reverb pitch shifting stuff in that symphony. You can max out that modulation, and you just have the best version of the soft focus, in my opinion. There's not a whole lot more to say on the matter. This is not going to be some long form exhaustive video because there is just not that much to dive into in terms of demystifying the control scheme here. It's a simple, straightforward 90s style rack reverb based on a sound that is beloved in the shoegaze community, and rightly so. And it is put together in an incredibly easy and approachable package, which is awesome. So let's get to our sound samples. We'll go ahead and run through all of the individual parameters as well as how they interact together. But yeah, simple, easy, phenomenal sounding mono reverb. It's great. So as always, before we get into our sound samples, let's go ahead and talk through the signal chain we are using and the context we're playing in. I am playing my Jennings Navigator with Lambertone Crema humbuckers into the Origin Effects Cali 76, the Electronic Audio Experiments Limelight, the Strymon El Cap, and the Catalinbread FX40 Soft Reverb. From there we go to the Revv G3, the Polymoon in stereo, and our amplifiers, which are going to be the Universal Audio Ruby and Dream in a stereo pair mixed in the GFI Duophony. For the sound samples, we're basically going to be using the Limelight with a very subtle clean boost going on, and basically nothing else. Let's give a listen to our dry tone. So we're going to start off looking at the soft focus with basically all of our reverb parameters at minimum, volume at minimum, and mix at noon. And the reason for this is volume at 0 is actually unity gain, and you can build up from there. And then these kind of serve to color what is otherwise a very blank slate of a reverb, which is really cool. So in buffered bypass mode, this volume control can actually be an always on clean boost. Let's take our mix to 0. So that can be as a part of your reverb, or that can be an always on thing you have access to on the soft focus, which is really cool. Let's take that mix back up to noon, and let's walk through that reverb control first, because like I said, the Verb by itself is incredibly simple. It's very much a blank slate to kind of really get crazy with the symphony and the modulation. So we'll run through kind of the min-max of the reverb parameters, kind of like decay, minimum and maximum decay times, and then we'll start to kind of introduce these other features. And similarly, that mix control goes from full dry. Okay, let's leave the reverb at maximum decay, because at max, it doesn't kind of like do the infinity thing anyways, which is really helpful. And let's start bringing in that modulation. Then we'll take that out. We'll bring in the symphony, and then we'll bring them both in for kind of what I think is the strong standout thing, which is just literally all knobs at maximum. You can even hear right there, like, this pedal is kind of designed to be a maxed out style reverb, which I think is really enjoyable. There is a lot of subtle stuff in there for people who want like more than one sound out of their reverb, but this thing really starts to shine as you get that modulation up. You can hear that kind of like threshold you cross where it starts to really find, quote, that sound from that kind of classic rack reverb it's based on. That modulation is incredible. Let's take a look at symphony. So, whereas the modulation kind of just increases that multi-voiced chorus movement, the symphony starts to bring in a kind of like an octave with a lot of harmonic information, but way better than a shimmer would. It also kind of increases movement in a similar way to the modulation, where they don't stack into a crazy cartoony thing. They just play really nicely together. Let's listen to that symphony. And now let's do the thing. Full mod, full symphony, full reverb, and then just kind of like slowly bring that into the mix.